Hello, welcome to this presentation entitled E-Learning is Dead. Now this deliberately pithy headline is really referring to an example of how we should re-examine the terminology we are using in e-learning, and how in many ways we're being held back by the way language pigeonholes us into thinking about things incorrectly. Technology has moved on since the term e-learning was first used, and as such the term e-learning, along with some of the other elements of the lexicon we use, should be re-evaluated. Before we start, I'd like to introduce my company eLearning W&B to you. We have been going in effect since 1993, originally as not an e-learning company, but a computer-based training company, since the term e-learning had not been invented by then, with the same management team in place then as today. Since 2003, the company renamed itself to eLearning W&B to reflect the new terminology for an online offering. We have always tried to do things a little differently, developing a unique way of creating e-learning called the corporate video meets e-learning approach. This has led us to look at e-learning, or as we like to call it, digital learning, with new eyes, and I hope we can share this perspective with you today. Incidentally, my name is Emil Rice-Weston. I'm a qualified ergonomist and also head of e-learning for eLearning W&B. Ergonomics means we have a different perspective on learning from other agencies. We look at the learning problem and strive to find the best, most user-friendly solution rather than the accepted one. Developing in this way gives us another reason that we have a different perspective on things from other developers. A key tenet of the philosophy and study of language is that it has an overriding effect on the way we think about things. Using language which does not adequately describe the world around us limits our thoughts and the way we think. In the words of Wittgenstein, "The limits of my language means the limits of my world." Today I'm going to look at some key terminology used in e-learning to show you how our comprehension of them limits our understanding of digital learning and causes us to evaluate things in a totally incorrect way. As Einstein says, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Like the fish, we should be analysing and judging our e-learning by what it should be doing, rather than an outdated or simply incorrect notion that fish possess squirrel-like properties. I hope to show you that such a revelation will have a dramatic effect on how you implement e-learning in your organisation. I'm going to start with e-learning and m-learning, that is electronic learning and mobile learning. I'm going to show you how, by treating these as different constructs, this has led us down the path of learning that is either constrained to a browser or very simplistic mobile learning that is often no more than a reading task. I'm going to examine what we mean by authoring software, how installed software has led us down the route of developing digital learning on a limited number of PCs and locations. In other forms of development, we are seeing cloud-based computing taking over the world. This, however, is not the case with e-learning, where the concept of authoring software is very firmly rooted in the concept of machine-installed software. I'll discuss why, and also the ramifications this entails. For those of you not familiar with the term Flash, Adobe's technology is the underlying plugin technology responsible for most of the e-learning you see today, including output from Articulate Storyline and Adobe's own Captivate. The general understanding of Flash is that it is a technology we need to move away from, as it will be unsupported in the future. We will show that this fear is very much unfounded, as the technology will adapt to the underlying conditions, so what may appear as a ticking time bomb will in fact be a gentle segue into the next technology that will be so far behind the scenes you should not even notice it. Before we start looking at what makes genuinely mobile learning, it's necessary to look at our company eLearning W&B, as I believe our approach affects the unique perspective we have on the accepted norms found in e-learning. W&B was founded in 1995 when mobile phones were just beginning to slim down a little, and laptops came in any colour as long as it was grey. At this time we were a CBT, computer-based training company, designing multimedia training for PC use only, using raw coding techniques. No off-the-shelf authoring software was available in those days. eLearn W&B was set up with the same management team in 2003 to take advantage of the move to computer-based training online. The same lessons learnt and ergonomic principles used then were employed to create our e-learning. This approach films presenters in green screen studios, so we can remove them from the background, as is shown here. We can then place them judiciously around the e-learning and place them in any environment we see fit, So your e-induction can be placed in your company atrium, your skills training at your place of work, etc. This unique methodology has required us to produce our own systems to carry out e-learning. This includes Jackdaw Cloud, a cloud-based authoring system, OpenL's Pro, a learning management system aimed at business users, as well as our own unique e-learning meets corporate video approach to bespoke development. Because we do not use systems used to create e-learning that are used by the majority, this gives us a unique perspective that gives us more control over what we produce. We are not in the hands of other companies' development systems such as Articulate or Adobe. It is this different view on things that I would like to share with you today, and demonstrate how this perspective can identify a few assumed truths in e-learning that we might need to revise. So we start with the term e-learning. What exactly do we mean by e-learning? Let's have a look at a few definitions. Learning conducted via electronic media, typically on the internet. E-learning has its root in distance learning and is part of the revolution brought by the new media, the web, Wikiversity. I won't bore you with others, but although these definitions are not always the same, they do have a single element of commonality amongst them. That being that all elements of e-learning involve online learning through a browser. Again, I won't bore you with multiple definitions of mobile learning, but here is the Wikipedia version. M-learning or mobile learning is defined as learning across multiple contexts through social and content interactions using personal electronic devices. A form of distance education, M-learners use mobile educational technology at their time convenience. Now again, the commonality is that all mobile learning is carried out by users that are mobile. It's interesting to note that the term mobile refers not to the smartphone, but instead to the learners themselves. Americans don't call mobile learning or M-learning cell learning or cell phone learning, so mobile learning can in fact take place on a laptop, so long as the user is in a mobile environment, without the need for internet connectivity, etc. So what this leads us to is two completely different concepts fighting for our online training budgets. On one hand, there is e-learning, with its need for interactive, video-rich content which can be run on a browser, whilst on the other there is M-learning, a flexible solution which allows learning to happen anywhere, but is constrained to run on small screens, which requires scrolling and more reading than its competitor, e-learning. The primary problem with this is that the boundaries between the two are merging, or have merged. There used to be two distinct types of device, the PC and the smartphone. The PC could have mobile characteristics such as in the form of a laptop, but they were distinct animals, one controlled by a keyboard and mouse running Adobe Flash plugin, and the other HTML5, thanks to Apple, using different technology altogether, which led to a more flat-screen reading experience. This changed with the advent of the iPad and touchscreen PCs. Now it was easy to link a Bluetooth keyboard to a tablet, and similarly many PCs had touchscreen facilities. At the same time, the e-learning industry has changed the technologies they use. Technologies including Articulate Storyline and Adobe's Captivate and our very own Jackdaw Cloud have been publishing e-learning content to mobiles now for years. So in fact the differentiation between the two concepts is very largely blurred. So why is this important, you may ask? Well, as long as these constructs are seen as separate entities, then clients will continue to commission two distinctly designed online learning offerings, and e-learning development companies will develop two different types of e-learning for each device. What I propose is the much better term digital learning. In my view, all e-learning should be mobile, as we are designing for a single digital platform. In the old days we had mobile learning, which was like a Land Rover, which could go anywhere, very utilitarian, not very glamorous, and not very quick. Whereas e-learning was like a sports car, quick, but relied on superhighways to run efficiently. So what I propose is the equivalent of an e-learning SUV. The sports utility vehicle, or SUV, was designed to be the best of both worlds, and I believe our e-learning should be likewise. It should have the flashiness and engagement of browser-based e-learning, like the sports car, but then be able to go anywhere in any environment, like the Land Rover. As an industry, we need to start looking at building such learning for a single digital platform like this. This is entirely possible, and I believe that this development is largely split into two different constructs due to the opinion that E and M learning are different things. I will now quickly show you an example of a digital learning course, which can be ran offline and online on any device, from smartphone to desktop PC, and syncs effortlessly across all platforms. The next thing we will look at is authoring software. Traditionally, we think of such software as installed on our technicians' machines, and something from which e-learning is created. This leaves the creative process very much in the hands of the technically astute, and in some cases design-minded individuals who are responsible for operating this process. The creative process, however, is very much restricted to the person operating the software, because this person has the software license. The software is installed on a person's PC, and the use of it is restricted to that person. Here's an example of Articulate's license. The Articulate end-user license agreement entitles a single user to use Articulate Presenter on a maximum of 2 computers, such as home or work computer, or a desktop and laptop computer. If you wish to install the software on additional computers or would like for more than one individual to use the software, you'll need to purchase additional licenses. Now, the problem with this idea of install software on machines is that this very much changes the way we work. If you use cloud computing at work, be it Google Docs or Microsoft Office 365 in the cloud, you'll be familiar with the great advantages of collaboration. When using the cloud, the whole organization has a license by default. Anyone can access and edit any document. Licensing this way makes this happen. If cloud software such as PowerPoint were not licensed in this way, then whenever we needed to make a change to our presentation, we need to contact the PowerPoint guy in our workplace and wait till he has time to go through your requirements. The layout of the presentation, text, etc. would all have to be changed only when he has time. Businesses could not operate in such a way, so why do we allow e-learning to act like this? Sure, we need e-learning design skills, but making minor changes should be very easy to be made on the hoof in a just-in-time basis. But it's not just licensing that causes problems. As I have alluded to, it's the very nature of software installation that gives IT support staff a cold sweat. Whilst they do not mind 1 or 2 employees having non-standardized software installed on their machines, a corporate PC setup is designed to be as standardized as possible. All sorts of problems with security, disk space and processing power occur when software is actually installed onto a PC. This is a very real and understandable concern. For this democratization of development to occur, we need to redefine the process of using authoring software, not as something that physically exists on our PCs, but instead resides in the cloud that can be accessed by anyone. Only then can the development process be truly accessible by all. Let's take the example of our own Jackdaw Cloud development software. The software use is unrestricted. Anyone with the URL and the appropriate permissions can open any course and start editing it in their browser. The interface is user-friendly and intuitive, allowing anyone to open a course and start editing. Ergonomics and user-centered design is at the heart of everything we do. What this means is that the course can be built with all the stakeholders having the opportunity to contribute to the design. Contribution to the design process can be very helpful. Thinking about how the design is put together allows us to emphasize the correct learning goals and really affect the information design in a positive way. It can also be used as a content management system, enabling us to edit the course at any time. Even the most virulent technophobe should be able to log in and type any text on the screen, leading to a much quicker implementation of any changes. So basically, in summary, thinking about authoring software, we should be thinking of something that is cloud-based, i.e. not installed on a PC. Use cloud computing so it's instantly accessible by anyone with permission from inside and outside the company. Has CMS qualities. Not just used by the techie in the office or even an outlier development team. The software should be readily accessible by all for development or made to make minor changes. And not be restricted in its use by licensing. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is Adobe Flash. Now, as I mentioned before, the most e-learning authoring software and systems somewhere in the development use Adobe Flash to build pretty animations and interactions which make up e-learning. This includes Articulate Storyline, Adobe's own Captivate, and even our very own Jackdaw Cloud. Now, the basic fact about this technology is it is really, really good at producing great-looking content with very little coding, so designers are control of the process, and typical e-learning interactions. The basic fact is e-learning would be really, really dull without this great technology. Yet there is a flip side, however. This is a quote from Steve Jobs, from, of course, Apple. Flash is the number one reason Macs crash. Now, basically, for reasons of openness, a tough one for Apple to defend, security, speed and battery life, Apple declared Flash a no-go area for its mobile devices. With one swift and probably unjustified blow, this technology was apparently given its death sentence. So when we think of Adobe Flash, we think of a technology that's had its day, soon to be obsolete. Even Adobe are distancing themselves from the project. In December 2015, Adobe decided to dump Flash from the name entirely and call it Adobe Animate CC. It is still supported, but when the Flash name is so toxic that Adobe are taking the name away from its products, the writing is surely on the wall. YouTube, Facebook, Google's Chrome, Firefox and Amazon have all migrated away from Flash to the new technology, HTML5. The very toxic nature of Flash has led e-learning to move away from the authoring environment and to produce native HTML5 content. Now the problem with this is it's not very good. Unless you're going to spend a lot of money coding from scratch, a lot more that's in the arms of most learning budgets, then the content you're going to produce is pretty simplistic. This perception of Flash has caused e-learning authoring to start from ground zero in many cases, producing a lot of e-reading content rather than e-learning. So the general understanding of the Flash technology is that it is no more, and that there's a lot of e-learning content that will need to be rewritten. Well, now for the good news. The death of Flash is not something you will ever need to worry about. Like the Y2K bug, it is something that will happen and you'll hardly even notice it. The reason for this is that your Flash e-learning content can be happily exported to HTML5 at any time. What I mean by this is that the authoring tools you use today, which utilize Flash, can quite happily be exported to HTML5. The same designs, interactions and coding can be taken from our Flash developments and exported into any format. For example, our own development system, Jackdaw Cloud, can export a developed course as a Flash file, SWF, HTML5, or an iPhone or Android app. In fact, it can be exported as all types of format. The browser can detect which plugins, etc. the system has and serves the correct content to the user. So please don't think of Flash as dead. The Flash development tools will survive. Basically, don't let the idea of Flash's demise bring fear for your future of your e-learning. Any decent e-learning company will write content for you that can be exported into a number of formats. Adobe Flash are renaming the development system Adobe Animate. The development methodology will be the same, but it will export content as HTML5, and indeed still in Flash. Google have also waded in with Swifty, a plugin converting any Flash content to HTML5. The fear of the demise of Flash is largely unfounded. When we started producing Flash e-learning that could run on smartphones a few years ago, nearly every technical person we showed it to said it was not possible. This is largely because of a misconception of what Flash is and how it can be deployed. In short, don't overly worry about your Flash content becoming obsolete, but do make sure your e-learning supplier is planned for the move to HTML5 and can ensure you that the content will be exported in this format for you, as well as other formats such as apps for iPhones and Android devices. When the fading out of the Flash plugin happens, you should not even be aware that your e-learning was moved from Flash to HTML5. It should just happen automatically, behind the scenes. Okay, so in summary, I'd like to show you how our understanding of what we know about e-learning should be looked at with new eyes. I asked that the differentiation between the browser-based e-learning and smartphone-orientated m-learning be swept away for the holistic term of digital learning. We should be thinking of one type of learning that's happened to exist on every device. Naming them as separate constructs gets us thinking about designing for different processes, which is 100% not necessary and unnecessarily expensive. It is the differentiation of the two terms that leads us to think in this redundant way. We also need to get away from the idea of authoring software as something that sits on the techie's PC. Authoring software should ideally be shared by the entire organisation. This will allow far better collaboration, get those who know the subject matter thinking about the best way to convey the learning goals, and enable quick, just-in-time edits by any authoritative person in the organisation. What we need to do is get authoring in our browsers and change the licensing mechanism so that costs are independent of who edits the system. And finally, we should not shy away from Adobe Flash. There is a fear in the e-learning industry of the term, but this is not something that should concern you overtly. Adobe are right to relabel the editing technology Adobe Animate for marketing reasons, but the development tool is essentially the same. If the plugin technology becomes obsolete, don't worry. Your browser should serve you up the same animated content in a different format. We develop e-learning that works identically on any platform. We don't one day do an e-learning project and the next an m-learning project. All projects are simply digital learning projects and can operate on any device. Our authoring software, Jackdaw Cloud, allows the rapid authoring of our unique e-learning meets corporate video approach to e-learning development. As the name suggests, the software runs in a browser and allows anyone in the organisation to edit any course as long as they have permission. Cloud-based editing with Jackdaw Cloud democratises the e-learning development. And finally, let's not think of Adobe Flash as an obsolete technology, the death knell of which will mean that our entire e-learning back catalogue will become redundant overnight. Check with your suppliers for their plans for HTML5, but any good supplier of bespoke e-learning development courses, such as ourselves, will provide upgrades of content as part of their support to you, which will seamlessly yield HTML5 versions of the courses as soon as your Flash plugin is no longer supported by your browser. I'd like to now open this up for questions. If you have any, please do email me by clicking below.